Hello and welcome to Nanapod, a podcast dedicated to the fantastic manga written by Ei Yazawa. I'm Crystal, and I'm joined by my best girl Kirsten as we dissect this manga, discussing everything from the emotions, the cultural impact, as well as any headcanons that might be floating around in our brains. With this podcast, we hope to preserve a shoujo staple that sadly hasn't been talked about in a very long time. So come with us. We're waiting for you in apartment 707. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Nanapod. So we are on chapter 60 here in the manga, and we open with a narration, and once again we are in Nana's head. And it says, now that I think about it, it was Christmas when I first met Ren, and when we first had sex. And now we're opening in an apartment here, and it's Shin, and he's doing the routine that was taught to him by his madam. This happened way long episodes ago, but he's doing the thing where he's slicing, I think it's a lemon, and then he's putting it into like his sparkling water and drinking it. And he has a text message, and it says, "Merry Christmas. You're getting all the new artist awards. You must be busy, but give me a call sometime. Ryoko." Speaking of his madam, that is his madam. And he's looking at the phone with just blank eyes. And now we have a scene change, and it's Ren's hotel room, and there's a game of cards, and Rira's also here, and there's a ring of the phone, and she says, "Ren, you're blowing up." And he says, "What?" "Oh, my phone." And Rira says, "These foreign pay-as-you-go phones are hard to use. I wish I could just use my regular phone here." And he says, "Aren't there phones that do that?" And she says, "I don't know. Just answer your phone." And then there's a beep, and he says, "Hello?" And it's Nana, and she says, "Well, hello, darling. Heart. Merry Christmas. Heart." And he looks shocked, stunned, and like, what the hell? And Rira's like, "Who is it?" And then she's like, and she, puts her hand over her mouth, because I think she realizes too late, because Ren was kind of shushing her, that it was Nana, and Nana still has suspicions that they slept together. And Nana's pulled the phone away from her ear with like this irritated look, and she's like, "Did I just hear a high, girly voice?" And he says, "No, it's nothing. We were just all playing cards together." And she says, "You play cards even when you're in England? Card shark freaks." And he says, Where are you calling from so late at night?" And she says, "I'm at home. It's morning here." And Rira's just sitting there with the dots, waiting, being silent. And he says, "Oh yeah? You got a home phone?" And she says, "No, not yet." And she taps her cigarette in the ashtray and says, "I can use the overseas calling service on my cell phone. Didn't you know?" And he goes, "What? You got a cell phone?" And she says, "Yeah. It's too much trouble not to have one. And by the way, she's like swanking around in like her pajamas, like, little sexy bra and all that, and just like a negligee robe, like she's Theta Bara or something." And Ren just kind of pauses, and he's like, "Is it a camera phone? You're so jet set." She says, "Oh no, I just got the same model I had before." And he says, "Huh?" And he says, "You want the same phone as me that bad? I'm so sure." And then there's a creak, and she blushes and says, "No, Masato picked it out. And I had to wait a long time. She said that phone's hard to get." Well, anyway, that's what's going on. So if you get homesick, don't be a hard guy. Call me. Heart. And then they've hung up the phone, and Rira says, Nana doesn't like me. And he says, no, she just gets jealous. It's not like there's a problem with you, Rira. Don't worry about it. But she's thinking about what Shin said when he was like, you're a selfish person. And Ren says, but it could turn into a problem, staying in a guy's room this late at night. Why don't you go back to your room and go to bed? And she says, I'll go back when you're asleep. And he says, you don't have to keep babysitting me. I'm all right. I'm really not doing drugs anymore. And she's like, but they're so addictive. The temptation's strong. And he says, I'm fine. Everything got confiscated before I really got addicted by the Shirazawa delivery service. And I don't know why Rira is all of a sudden wearing what kind of looks like a flight attendant hat on her head. And she just has like these dots, and he's like, she's like a dog sniffer. The Shirazawa dog. And Rira says, that's a great ramen shop, heart. Ruff, ruff. And she's got like a little box that says Shirazawa delivery service. And he says, it was a ramen shop? I've never had your ramen. I think they're just fucking around. And she says, 'cause the noodles go soft while I'm delivering them. Oh my god. And he's like, damn. Now all I can think about is ramen because you mentioned it. Serious withdrawal. And she says, me too. I'm hallucinating. And now they're hallucinating little bowls of ramen with wings. And he says, I wonder if there's a ramen shop somewhere and still open. Maybe Naoki knows. And she says, he's hitting the clubs every night. We can't reach him. And Ren says, what about our leader then? He knows all. And Rira says, I don't even want to think about what he's doing this late. And now he's married. And Ren goes, what about Mari? She'll hunt high and low to find a place. I wonder why a law major got a job finding late night ramen joints for fools like us. Wouldn't it be a bummer? And he says, then ask Kinoshita, wake him up. And she's like, yeah, with a heart, and then a beep of her phone. It's cute, such a cute friendship. And now we have a scene change to Hachi, and there's a ring of the phone, and there's a 2001 timetable in front of her, and she's eating ramen. And it's a text message, and it says, you're going to visit your parents today, right? Say hi to Natsuko, Goro, Nao, and Naomi. From Ms. Nana. Replied to the Merry Christmas. And Hachi replies and says, sorry, I can't go to the thank you party. Have a great show, Hachiko. December 2004. December 24th, 2001. Christmas for each of us, says the think boxes. And now we have another scene change. And it says, even if we couldn't spend time together, I wish that we could, and tell each other what a great day it was. And now this is Clara, if I remember correctly, the groupie. And it just says, B2, blood. And she's like, found it. This is it. And now our real Masato is like, phew, good thing we got here on time, but just barely. And then her friend, I think it's Fujioka, or anyway, she's like, this is a really hard place to find. And Clara says, 'cause it's a secret party. Step on it. And then Misato's friend says, I wonder if the band's already here. And like her heart's going thump thump. And real Masato says, hey, it's Fujimoto. I was wondering who you were. Fujimoto, that's what it is. She's asking that because Fujimoto took her glasses off. And she says, cut it out. And Masato says, because you're so cute. Heart, the magic of contacts. And she says, maybe Shin will hit on you. What would you do? And Fujimoto says, no way that's happening. And then Claire bursts out of the elevator and she's like, what are you guys doing? Hurry up. And they're like, yes, ma'am. And now we're cutting back to the apartments. And there's a ding on the room 3, and a slide of the door opening, and it's Miyu. And she's like, "Oh, Masato, phone Masato, you're blonde now." And Masato says, "Yeah, good morning, Merry Christmas, heart." And Miyu says, "It's already noon. Aren't you going to the thank you party?" And Masato says, "Mr. Genpai told me not to go. He said if I go as a blast staffer, the other fangirls won't like it." And then there's a slide as the door closes. And Miyu says, "I can see that. They might be jealous." And Fomasato says, "So I was told to attend a luncheon with the president instead. Do you think it's all right that I'm dressed like this?" Mr. Sugimura said I look fine, but... And Miyu says, "No problem. He just wants to show off his cute young staff." Which, gross. And, I think the reason that she's not allowed to go is a couple of reasons. One, yeah, I think they told her to go other places because if they recognize her, they'll be like, "Oh, you got way close to Nana by using a fake name," and also the real Masato is there. And it might be awkward. So, now the man at the Yamagishi, he's snoring at the front desk here, and Miyu says, "Mr. Yamagishi's passed out again. He's already drunk. Oh well." And Fomasato says, "Are you working, Miyu?" And she says, "Nope, I got nothing to do, so I was thinking about going shopping. But seeing lovey-dovey couples walking the streets will probably just annoy me." And Fomasato was laughing, and Miyu says, "So maybe I won't go. I'm sure it's too crowded anyway." And Fomasato says, "But you can spend your night all lovey-dovey. Heart, Yasu's done with work at 10. And she says, "Well, Yuri wasn't too happy about that. Nobu has some special radio show spot till late at night." And Fomasato says, "Yeah, he's a good talker, so he gets most of the requests. They want him as a regular, too." And Miyu says, "They've all got their own schedules these days. They don't do so much as a group anymore." And Fomasato says, "True, but they don't have individual managers, so things are really chaotic. The extra work falls on whoever's free." And Miyu says, "But Masato, you're pretty much like Nana's manager." And then she says, "Oh, oops," and looks kind of like, "Oh God." And Fomasato says, "What? What's wrong?" And Miyu says, "Damn, I just called you Masato." Ah, she said the wrong name. And Fomasato says, "You called me Masato a while back, too." "Well, when we first met." And Miyu says, "Did I? Oh, well, everyone calls you that, so it stuck with me, too. So maybe I should just call you Masato then." And Fomasato says, "Yeah, why not? It stuck with me, too, heart." And Miyu says, "Oh yeah, speaking of Masatos, Masato Urahara is coming up from Osaka today. The girl from the okonomiyaki shop that everyone was talking about." And now Masato looks over like, "What?" And we scene change to the party. And everybody is here. And one of the groupies is like, "Hey, Masato," wearing her cute little dress. And Masato, she looks so much like Nana in this shot. She's wearing the exact same outfit. The only difference is her hair is blonde. And she's like, "Marika, Rui, wow, you guys look cool." And the girls come over and hug them, and I keep on forgetting her friend's name. Fujimoto is like, "Hello." And she's like, "Hello, dear heart. Chikagi, you're so cute, heart. And aren't you hot, heart?" And our other groupie here, who's got the shaved head on one side, is like, "You look like Nana in that getup, heart, and you sound like her, too." And now here come other groupies, and they're like, "Oh, this is the Masato Urahara? She's so cute. I mean, beautiful." And this other girl's like, "Yeah, you look like Nana. I'm so jealous." And like the only boy who's in this club right now is like, "Hi, I'm Runa. Nice to meet you, heart." And Real Masato just smiles. And now we're back in the dorms, and Faux Masato says, she's coming where? And Miyu's got dots, and she's like, to the thank you party. And Faux Masato's like, why? And Miyu pauses and like, they couldn't fill it with just the Tokyo fans. So the local fan club girls gave a shout out to girls from all over so the party'd be packed. And Faux Masato said, I heard about that from Mr. Genpai. I know there were fans who dropped out when Blast went major label, but there are enough Blast fangirls now, so why was she... And Miyu says, I don't think it was anything. People just noticed her because she has the same name as you, Masato. So did Nana and the others. And Masato looks up, and she looks like on the verge of panic. And Miyu gets like this, wait a minute, very kind of searching look. And Masato's like, just because her name is Masato? And Miyu is still kind of had that searching look, and she's like, what's wrong? What's wrong with her coming to this party? And Faux Masato has like a sweat drop, and then she's like, nothing. And Miyu's just kind of looking like, okay. And then Masato turns and she's like, well, I'm in a hurry, so I have to split. And then Miyu says, Masato, if you don't go to the luncheon with the president, he'll fire you. Genpai's right. If you go to the party, the fangirls won't be happy. I'll go check out the party for you. So tell me what's going on. And Masato's got a pause. And like a real pause, like, do I? Don't I? Considering. And now we're back at the party with real Masato. And she says, the band's still not here. I wonder why. And there's like the blah blah of people talking. And then one of the groupies is like, they'll be on stage soon, heart. And her friend's like, on stage? And the groupie says, the stage is all set up. They'll probably play a few songs. And real Masato says, no way, really? And the groupie says, well, we're not totally sure, but probably. And now these girls have, well... Real Masato has Hachi's stupid star eyes, and her friend Fujimoto has hearts. And they're both like, we gotta get up front, dash! And this groupie now has like the dots, and she's like, but we're not sure. And the one with the shaved head is like, they're so hyper. What a great idea to invite newbies like them. I'm impressed with Shion. And the other girl says, by the way, where are Shion and Saki? They better not be backstage. And the other girl says, they're working the front desk, checking who's coming in. Fake bouncers. And now we're cutting to this back room, and one of the other groupies is like, are they going to go on stage soon? And the other one's like, yes. And Shion says, why don't you go in and watch the show? And one of the others says, can I? But what about you, Shion? And she says, I have to see Akiko and Yoko in person and let them in. They don't have official invites. And one of the others is like, I can't believe they're so late. What's their problem? God! And Shion says, I'm glad they decided to come, though, even at the last minute. It's 'cause you convinced them, Saki. And Saki says, but I'm not so sure it was such a good idea. Are they really going to show up? And Shion looks... considering, uncertain. And in the back here, there's a TV, and it says, we decided to invite only 30 fans that day. It's the think boxes. It says, 'cause we thought that most of our regulars would just show up anyway. And Nobu says to Shin, he's like, Shin, are you getting taller? Since when? And Shin's like, you think? And the think boxes said, only 7 fans came from our hometown. And Nobu's like, don't stand next to me. And Yasu has turned around to look at Nana, and she's thinking, but we're selling the most CDs in all of Japan. And here comes Genpai in a Santa suit, and he's like, are you guys all ready? It's about time. And now there's a shot of the microphone with the ribbon tied around it. And the think boxes say, "We can only charge full speed ahead. We can only look forward." And here's Masato, real Masato, up at the front with like blush lines, looking very much like Hachi did the first time she saw her perform. And Fujimoto's like, "We can really see Blast play this close up? It's like a dream." And Masato says, "I know, I'm gonna cry. Damn, I'm already crying." The other groupie says, "We don't know for sure yet, Heart. The stage might just be decked out for fun, Heart." And the shaved head girl says, "Stop messing with them, Marika. What will you do if you make them cry?" And then there's a poof sound as the lights go out, and everyone gasps, and they turn around, and here comes the band, and everyone is like, "Eek!" as they all come out, and they grab their instruments, and they're looking down, and Masato is like, "Nana!" And Nana looks down right at her, and she just gives her the softest smile, and Masato is blushing so hard. Then Nana looks up and says, "Merry Christmas, we're Blast." And then whap, you know. And now back out here in the lobby, like, "Oh, you live in Yoyogi Uehara, Heart?" says this male groupie. And he's like, "What kind of work do you do? Groupies can't have a regular day job. Are you a temp?" "Oh, he's just a guy." Okay, and she's like, "I'm not working right now. I feel guilty about it, but Daddy's got the dough." And he's like, "Oh, you married up? I can see it, Heart." And she says, "No, I mean my real daddy." He's like blushing at her, and there's a creak, and Shion's all beautiful and sparkly, and here comes Miyu. And this guy's like, "Huh? Miyu?" And she's got a sweat bead, and he says, "What are you doing here?" And she says, "That's just what I was going to ask you, Shun. Since when do you work for Blast?" And he says, "Since all my other clients don't get much work, I ain't got nothing but time." And she says, "Too bad. Can I just pop in for a second?" And he says, "What?" And Shion has a look like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Who do you think you are? No way. Jin'll strangle me." And he's like grabbing her scarf to hold her back. And she says, "It's cool. No one knows me. Gonna tangle with me?" And Shun is freaking out, and he's like, "No, it's a bad idea. Yasu can't have his girlfriend show up at a fan event." And she turns around and she says, "Shun!" And she kind of looks over at Shion and is like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Oops." And Shion just pauses and then goes, "It's all right. I won't tell anyone. Yasu already told me he had a girlfriend." And Shun says, "What? Really?" And she says, "I'm pretending not to know him in front of the fans. But we've been friends for a long time. We know each other well." And Shun says, "Oh, really? So that's why Jin trusts you and has you do stuff for us. Now I get it." And she's opening up a pack of black cherry cigarettes and says, "If you need help, just call me. I'll do anything." And Miyu's like side-eyeing her, and he's like, "Really? How sweet of you, Heart." And she's got the dots, and she's looking over at Miyu and says, "Oh, pardon me for not introducing myself. I'm Shion, the president of Blast's private fan club. It's so nice to meet you." Is it though, Shion? I know that Melissa and I kind of said back when she was first introduced that she's kind of a mean girl, and I still think that that's true and very much holds up, which kind of sucks for Miyu because Miyu, her relationship is still developing with Yasu, and I think she's got trust issues, so I don't think she knows what to think of Shion. And Shion is definitely flaunting the fact that she's known Yasu longer in front of her face right now. But back in the room, we have real Masato, and she's like, Sai, Nana was so cool. No way I could really look like her. I'm such a bad girl. I'm sorry. And Fujimoto, and she's like, they're even better live. And Fujimoto has all the hearts in her eyes, and she's just sighing. And Masato goes, uh-oh, she's off with Shin in her dreams. Don't mind me. And Clara's laughing. And here's Genpai, and he's like, hello, everybody. Merry Christmas, Heart. How'd you like the show? I'm your Santa Claus MC tonight, Heart. And they're all like, eek, Jin, you're adorable, Heart, says our fangirl. And he says, I'm not Jin. I'm Santa. Just believe me. And then they're all laughing. And Masato says, who's Jin? And the groupie's like, he's Blast's manager. And Masato says, what? He's not a comedian? And the girl with the shaved head just starts laughing. And Genpai's like, the band will come back out soon and we'll play bingo. You have the chance to win rare swag. So please stick around, Heart. And now we have a scene change to the backstage. And Nana's saying, hey, did you see that? Masato number 2 was right up there, front and center. She was so psyched, Heart. And Nobu says, I saw her. She was next to Marika, right? And Shin says, I recognized her right away because she looks just like Nana. And Nana's like, yeah, Heart. And Yasu goes, you guys look that much alike? And then here comes Shun, and he's like, hey, Yasu. And Shin says, well, I was busy looking at Marika's cleavage. You could almost see. No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. You stop. No. Shin, no. And Nobu's like, you can see more because of the angle. It's not fair. Guys, stop. It's not okay. And then Yasu goes out and he's like, what? And Shun says, sorry, she won't leave, so I brought her back here. I can't have her out there. And Yasu comes out and he sees that it's Miyu. And he's got the dots. And Shun says, you tell her to leave, please, Heart. And Miyu's just looking down at the floor. And he's like, what's up? And she said, I didn't want to come here, but it's an emergency. And he says, what? And she said, Masato told me that you shouldn't let the other Masato, Urahara from Osaka, get near Nana. And he says, why? And Miyu says, I asked her, but she won't tell me. She wouldn't tell me. But she got really anxious, like she was freaking out. Can you think of any reason? And Yasu says no. And she's looking at his finger, and she notices that not only is he smoking the same cigarettes as Shion, but they are also wearing the same rings with a scorpion on it. And she looks down and she's like, so I came here because I was worried, but I'm not allowed to be here, so you have to keep a lookout instead, all right? And he says, okay, but how can I watch out for something when I don't even know what it is? And she says, just make sure those two don't meet. Aren't you listening to me? And then she kind of storms off, and he's like, sorry. And I'm going to pause for a second and do some speculating. So, usually Miyu is very good about asking, but again, the relationship is new, she's got trauma, she's been hurt in the past, and she's a self-harmer, you know, so a lot of things could be triggering, especially if she thinks that she's being lied to. She doesn't have time in this moment to ask him what is going on, and I also think that she doesn't want to seem like a jealous person, but it's clearly bothering her. And this is something that I have speculated on for some time. It happens in Nana, and I've seen it happen in real life. I've been guilty of it. The thing with, like, Nana getting the same cell phone as Ren, or, you know, wearing the same collars, the same clothes, things like that. Shion is doing the same thing. She smokes the same cigarettes. She wears the same ring. In many ways, I think some women do this in order to hold on to something that they either currently have or they no longer have. You know, things mean things to them, but like in secret. Um, I can't really explain it any better than that, but like, I used to do it a lot when I was younger as well, you know, get the same necklaces, wear the same kind of clothes as that person, uh, in order to feel close to them. And it's kind of weird. Like, in retrospect, it's a really, really weird thing to do. Especially when that person doesn't belong to you in that way. And yeah, it's just possession. It's possession and feeling like you hold more sway over them than you actually do. It's something that I think a lot more people engage in than they realize. And having done it, I'm going to say that it's not a healthy behavior. It's actually kind of toxic. So, anyway, we're back on stage with Genpai. And he says, "All right, everyone, Heart, do you all have your bingo cards ready? We'll play 4 games of bingo, Heart. And here are the prizes, Heart." And he, you know, pulls off this sheet. And we get 4 items. We have a Vivienne Westwood bag, a Vivienne Westwood earring, and 2 other earrings that are just like a stud and a hoop. And he says, "Blast's most treasured belongings." And Nana says, "Like my panties, Heart." Okay, there's some more stuff on the table. There's like a collar with, like, you know, a chain, and I think one of Yasu's hats. And Nobu's like, no, nobody wants them. And then everyone is like giggling, and Yasu is looking at Masato and is thinking, "You shouldn't let her get near Nana. I recognize her right away because she looks just like Nana." And he's taking it in and thinking, because something's up, you know. And if I could speculate on this, this is something that we never got an answer to, but Masato must know that real Masato is Nana's sister. And I think a lot of stuff would come tumbling out. So maybe she thinks she's protecting Nana by not letting her know that her mother ran away and got a secret, like a second family without her. But I also think that Masato, faux Masato, has selfish reasons. Again, possession. This is like the possession chapter. People trying to hold on to things and keep things that don't belong to them. Anyway, we get a scene change to our mosquito man here, looking at the picture that he took of Nana's mother. And then there's a slide of a door, and it's Hachi. And he says, "Well, hello, Nana." And she, like, turns and looks, and she says, "Oh, hello, Mr. Karada. Thanks for the nice photo shoot last time I saw you." And it says fake smile above her head. And he says, "Are you leaving town?" And she says, "Well, maybe. My husband's away on business, so there's no point staking out our building. You're only bothering the people who live here." And he says, "There's something I want to ask you." And she's like, "I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry." And is thinking, what's up with this guy? Isn't he just a photographer? And he says, "Did you know that Nana's mother is still alive?" And Hachi stops, and she turns and she says, "What?" And he just is looking at her. And Hachi Nana is thinking, when they were talking about her mom initially, and Nana had said, "Who knows, maybe she died in the gutter." And he says, "If you don't know, that's all right. Don't worry about it. Sorry to bother you." And she's got the dots, and then she's still thinking about Nana, who said, "If you can't raise a kid right, you shouldn't have a baby. There's too many crazy parents in this world." And Hachi says, "Wait, come back." And he's got a sly smile like, "Gotcha, bitch." and see villain shit. And the think boxes say, "Hey, Hachi," and then Nana's mom says, "Welcome," to these people in her establishment. And it says, "I wasn't hurt that the mother who abandoned me had somehow managed to survive. But I was repulsed that she turned out to be such a plain, ordinary woman. I'm such a pathetic human being." And that's the end of the chapter. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. And I will see you all in the next one. Good night.